through it. So first, Grant, I'm the chief architect at Ecolab and the founder of the Chief Architect Network. About 591 people that lead architecture for 10 or more architects or a billion plus scale. It's a true honor. Last night we had a bunch of us out together for dinner, had some good conversation with Neil and each other, and I just get so full in my heart every time I can spend time with my peers, share stories, and figure out how we can grow together. And I feel the same way about the people I'm sitting with up front here. These folks represent the vendors that are positioned to help architecture win in our organizations. It's a really big deal. These guys are figuring out how we can do our jobs better with tooling that they can help us create, right? And they listen to us. They actually say, okay, so what's working, what's not? And how can we better support you with our roadmap? And they do it with their own focus groups, and they also do it in the network. They come, they sit in the room with us, they're writing things down, they're bringing it back home, and they're trying to make sure their product continues to grow and retain relevance. So I really appreciate everything these folks do to support us. One thing we all have in common, sure, they might be at different companies. There might be a little elbows up here around, hey, this is, if I want that business, get out of my way. But everyone in the front of the room here wins when we go after a tool for our EA practice, right? Everyone here has that common advantage, because common incentive. I've been in practices without a formal EA tool, and I've been in practices with one. And I have to tell you, the difference is tremendous. I'm currently without one, and I notice it. So I think that's the common. And then there's, of course, some nuance. So I'm going to have some fun with this group. We all know each other pretty well. So I'll give you, we didn't prep. I want this to be a live conversation, and I would love for you folks to be able to participate with us. You might have questions too. I'm going to repeat after you so we can move a little more fluidly rather than hand a mic around, if that's okay. So we're going to do a couple things. We're going to talk about the overall intention of your tooling and supporting strategy and business architecture. Tell us what you're really proud of your group, right? And what your roadmap has on it that you're so excited about or that you've just released, and just a little about yourself as well. We'll do that first. Then we're going to do something kind of fun. I'm going to ask you to say something that you're actually a little bit not happy with about your own product. And this is the fun part, because these guys all know each other. Pick one of your competitors and say something good about them, right? It's going to be fun, right? So let's start.
There's no arm wrestling or anything.
I didn't say that. Did anyone say that? Free game.
I am a Canadian, so I do believe in elbows up. So
yeah, absolutely. So let's just start with that. So let's start with, tell us about yourself, maybe a little about your journey, and some of the things you're most proud about with your individual companies and what you're doing to support helping architecture practices drive strategy and business architecture. Jason, why don't you start us off, and we'll just work down the row.
I think there were.
Oh yeah. Let's see. We have an order. Oh, there it is. Gordon, you're first.
Yeah. In true OCD fashion, I wanted to sit in order.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I didn't know if it was going first name or last name. But Gordon, as you can read behind me, Gordon Cooper with Orbus Software. And the first thing I'd like to do is say thank you for making it warm here, because where I am, it's like a miserable 78 degrees, sun's out, that kind of thing. So not to rub that in. But to answer Grant's question, the thing that I'm most proud of is we are in the process of turning this thing on its head. I'm going to speak sacrilege because right now we're combining the logical and the physical operations and planning. And we're doing this through DTO. So it is the creation of a living, breathing operating model. And we're using value streams as the centerpiece, because if you can show your company, your C-suite, how you make money, the parts and pieces that compose those value stages where you make that money, and then how you can improve a specific component because you're getting a heat map saying that this thing is not operating, up to standard or last year, and then predictively change things that will impact that trajectory of value. There's no reason why the C-suite will not completely adopt your work. And that's our goal, is to make, I've been doing architecture for a long time. I mean, I heard him talking about, we were around when PCs were first invented, and I was in that crowd. So, but to see architecture transcend just being architecture into being something that the C-suite will consume, that's where we're heading.
Love it. Let's figure out who's next. Oh, there's the Orbus. Okay, I'll do that one better next time. Brenda, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Give me something back. Good afternoon. I want a little energy in this room.
How are you?
Okay,
How
good.
was your day?
Excellent. Yeah.
Then you got beat.
I'm Brenda. I've been in this game for a long time. I originally brought BizzDesign. You're welcome, Dan. Over from the Netherlands way back when. Have not worked for SAP yet, but also worked with Gordon briefly at Orbus.
Firm that could fix that.
Yeah. Well, anyways, no, I'm comfortable in the current seat.
Okay.
But yeah, so I've recently joined Qualiware last year. Qualiware is a Danish company. We've actually been in the space for a long time. So we've got 31 years of great experience and guidance to provide our clients and prospects. But we have a very modern approach to architecture. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but Charlie, are you here? There's Charlie Betts from Forrester. Charlie and some of his colleagues published an article just yesterday about our market and that it's $1 billion valuation in the market, and highlighted all of us here, I believe, and Qualiware as well, because we are known as a forward-thinking company. So we have a new mobile app called Qualiware Go, and the whole thing, it's the entire company and product approach is really based on a Danish management philosophy of cohesion. And so we have a lot of that approach. We believe in architecture for all. It's a team sport, and your business decisions are going to be better based on more data you have and the good quality data that you have that you're putting together in one place. So we have a mobile app. We are very forward thinking. Right now, we have a lot of government and defense clients, so you can imagine the conversations that are happening given the current climate. We have a product that is both SaaS and on-prem, and we fully support our on-prem products. So anything that's new in the SaaS product is also in the on-prem product, given that government client base. And of course, AI, you can't not talk about AI, right? So like everyone else here, we all have some AI functionality in the product. But of course, I was in a panel, I think a few of us were in a session earlier where is Chris Armstrong here? There's Chris, where you guys were talking about AI and, you took the crotchety old man approach. Oh, AI, but it's not going anywhere. So,
That guy taught me TOGAF.
I know. But, it is going to change the caveman. Okay. Yeah. But it is going to change the way that we all work, right? And at Qualiware, we're looking at, well, how can we leverage that to have you guys, what I call, use your superpowers for good, right? None of us want to do admin work, so all these tools help with that. But really help you guys do the strategic part of the job.
All right. Let's keep it rolling. Go ahead,
Cool.
Dan.
So my name is Dan Hebda. I work for BizzDesign. Similar to Brenda, I brought an EA market to the US, but it was initially Mega. I'd worked there for 25 years. We were recently acquired by BizzDesign. And so we're now representing 3 major platforms, HopeX, Horizon, and Alphabet. We're also developing new tools. And what's cool about where we're headed is the key focus is on simplicity. We found that a lot of the architecture tools, they'd gotten to a place where organizations were happier with Visio, Lucid, Miro, etc. So we're coming up with easy, very easy tools, collaborative tools. So you'll work with your team members dynamically in the same architectures, in the same spaces, sharing data very dynamically. And of course, AI, as Brenda mentioned, you can't go without talking about it. And we're not only working on it, we've already introduced a number of valuable artificial intelligence, the goal of which is to get rid of as much as possible the tedium in architecture work so that the architects can really work on value add. So it's not meant to be buzz only, it's meant to really help you speed up and accelerate data population, curation, etc. I recently spoke at the CAN event about some of the AI work and some of the cool things that we can already do. And like all of us here, I've got different relationships with the group. I think Brenda probably closer to 10 years now. Gordon I've known for, I can't even remember how long. And Jason I just met, I think, last year. So nice to meet you. But it's a group
Can't buy
that's,
tea, right?
yeah, it's interesting because as an architecture community, it's friendly.
It really is.
You can see when vendors come into the space that don't care about architecture, they're not part of the group that communicates. They kind of stay as outsiders, whereas the rest of us are always sharing insights and information.
100%. I won't speak about BizzDesign relative to your colleagues, but I'll speak about Mega relative to itself. Having like seen that tool over the past decade or two, it was really difficult. It was this like web of complexity. You could make it do anything, but it was impossible to like navigate. And that's where I've seen them really shift their focus into kind of learning from their peers up on the front of the stage and taking that complexity into something that can really drive value without that admin layer. So I think it's one of these things where we all set our vision based on where we start. And I think BizzDesign has, previously Mega, has absolutely delivered on where they had an opportunity. So I don't know as much about the history of all the other products, so I can't kind of do the same for each one. But I also do have some experience with LeanIX. I think that the folks there have been able to really expand the offering from a basic APM solution to have a lot more expanded offerings. I think Orbus, which when I put that in at Lowe's, was a very basic process tool that wanted to do a lot more, and you filled a lot of those gaps. And Qualiware came out of nowhere to me. I just learned about it, and then of course Brenda.
I'm here to change that. Great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
She's the champion of taking things over in Europe and bringing them here. Like she's the Christopher Columbus of EA, honestly. So I'm just learning about their product for the first time, so I can't put it relative to its past, but already being in Charlie's quadrants, it couldn't suck, I'll tell you that. So not bad. Oh, it's not a quadrant, is it? It's the wave. Thank you. Yeah, wave. Okay, so let's do the fun thing.
No, you missed my intro.
I missed your intro.
Yeah, so
I
you
know
thought I
you
went
so well.
first. You got all caught up. Jason Taylor, Principal Enterprise Architect with SAP. My background's a little different. I spent most of the last 30 years leading architecture and delivery teams, CTO roles, big organizations, mostly in financial services, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, et cetera. I think for us at LeanIX, and one of the things that sort of made me join the organization was the simplicity of the tool. So I actually was a prior Mega buyer at Bank of America a while back, and the tool complexity makes it hard for organizations to leverage the value. So for me, that's one of the great things about LeanIX. I think we really leaned into the experience. And then from a vision perspective, the goal is, you can have, and I've been in organizations where, the strategy is on the wall, right? Or the city map is on the wall. But that doesn't get you value, right? And I think we all have led teams where we struggle with this, where people get caught up in that aspect of the role, right? But you need to turn that into value, right? And so I think we've done a great job of trying to integrate those tools and make that execution possible, right? Because you don't get value out unless you get execution done. And for me, that's one of the great things about the organization so far, is really sort of lean into that space to make execution better. 3 quick areas I wanted to talk on from a sort of feature or function perspective is the AI Agent Hub, which is live now. We've got a point of view that the agentic space is out there. I'll put myself leaning skeptical sometimes on the AI front. We can talk about that later, but the cat's out of the bag, it's out there, and you've got to manage that sprawl in your organization. So the Agent Hub will let you discover, govern, and capture those agents and put them into your repository and understand value. Second space is AI and agentic use in general. So we've got lots of capabilities to sort of in the tool provide AI to you, AI assisted guidance. There's an inventory builder product, which will take a sort of visual diagram and turn that into data into your repository. So again, tools to help you use sort of generic agentic AI and et cetera to your advantage. And then the integrated tool chain, which is sort of taking all these tools across business process mining, WalkMe for digital adoption, et cetera, and sort of bleeding into these other areas. So again, you can actually lean into that execution across the broader landscape. So.
Amazing. And thanks for the kind nudge.
And if you haven't met Grant yet, by the way, please meet Grant. Amazing guy. His heart's in the right place. Participating in the can for me is always a pleasure because of him. So thanks, Grant.
Thank you. Did you notice his kind correction? That's the kind of like culture that these folks have with each other. Like it's really kind of special. Let's do the fun thing, right? Let's do the experiment. Who wants to go first? Something you wish your organization was doing a little better, and something you really admire about one of your competitors. Who wants to go first? It's a tricky
I can
one.
start. That's an easy one for me.
Okay.
As we're going through a merger with 3 technologies and 3 products and a new one that's coming with, which will have that dramatic simplicity, there's too much. And so part of what we're working on is simplifying the solutions, the offering, not only in what's delivered, but in which pieces will stay and which pieces will go forward. So working that out, the 3 platforms generally will all exist, but choosing in business what you do is equally important as choosing what you are not going to do. And that's something that we're working through fresh off this merger. In terms of compliments, probably the easiest for me is just Orbus relative to Gordon. And knowing Gordon and working with him for so long, and you could kind of say it for all of them here, it's just these resources are assets to those companies. So a company that's got Gordon on board can't be doing something wrong. Technologically, I don't have much to say, but I know
I owe you
for personnel wise,
a
it's great to have Gordon at an organization like Orbus. Is lucky to have him.
Love it. All right, who's next? All right, go for it,
I can
Jason.
go second. So folks that know me know that I'm also a critic, and so that's a double-edged sword, right? Because you get that both ways. I'm happy to take feedback, but I also like to give feedback. So for me, I see the so many areas of opportunity with what we're doing in the enterprise architecture space to do more, right? And I would like to run my entire architecture review process within LeanIX and have no sort of external components to that. And of course, the organization can't do everything that everybody asks for, right? It's got to be a measured, sort of prioritized approach. So I would love to see that. And if anyone sat in Anoop from CHS's presentation earlier today, you saw the order of the possible there, where he's really leaning into a lot of the capabilities and leveraging as much as he can in the platform. And I want to help him to do that, to the extreme, right? On the flip side, things I sort of like about other vendors. So I haven't used everyone's tool hands-on directly, but I am jealous of Dan's opportunity to, we're all, tech debt is a killer, right? The complexity that tech debt creates, the friction that it creates, and be able to move fast, right? To be able to literally start from scratch and take all the info out there and see the trends and build from like net new is an amazing opportunity. So, for me, Dan, that's where I'm jealous.
Love it. Who's next?
I'll jump out there. So for our own internal company, and it's a problem similar to Dan, we acquired Capsify last year. And I think I'm an impatient person.
Me too.
Right? It's because technology goes fast. I'm old enough to where I can't go as fast physically as I used to, but I expect that when you acquire something, you want to get that full functionality right out of the gate. You want it as part of the platform. So that process has been a little slower than of course, I would have liked. I wanted it immediately because everybody knows the work that Terry did with Capsify, and it's a fantastic business architecture tool. So if I could have done anything to speed that up, that would have been one of the things that I would have done last year. Fortunately, it's now integrated, but still. Now, as far as complimenting, well, I hate to pile on to Dan, but I've known Dan for almost 20 years, I guess. I mean, because I used to call him, in fact, I called him on his son's birthday when I was a customer of his, and complaining on a Sunday, and he actually took my call. So Dan, wherever you go, buddy, I mean, BizzDesign or Mega, the focus on services, all the years, I can't say thanks enough.
Amazing. So cool. So I think we're all here trying to further business architecture and the strategy role of architecture in our organization. So what I'd like each of you to do is tell me how your I missed one. Oh yeah. Last but certainly not least, in horrible manners, because it should have been ladies first. Go ahead.
It's all good.
See?
Where were you going with your next question?
I'll go, yeah,
I can incorporate
give you a
that.
little processing time, right?
Yeah.
So I want to hear what you're thinking about how your company is supporting business architecture in its feature roadmap or what's currently there, what you're most proud of there specifically. And secondly, I'd like you to tell me a story from a business architecture and strategy driving part of an architecture practice that's been a customer of yours, what have they been able to do before and then after? Like, tell me what the great outcome they've been able to do with business architecture after adopting your tool. That'll be that question. Man, I am just so excited to get to question after question. I'm like missing the last one. So
okay, I'll try and answer as much as possible, but I know time's a ticking. So I'm going to answer the first question first. Yep. So I think as Qualiware, so unlike my very big PE invested neighbors here, we're privately owned. So there's a little jealousy, there, because there's a lot more pots to pick from in terms of the suites and availability, et cetera. But on the other hand, I think it's an advantage in certain situations, right? So we're pretty nimble, we're pretty quick. There's a little less tape to get through sometimes. So
that seemed directed at one person in particular.
with a wink and a nod.
I have reorganization emails in my inbox right now.
Anyways, and to complement, I could compliment all three. I do think, you mentioned it earlier, we're a pretty congenial group, for competitors. And we do share info and insights with each other. And if, I've done it before, if I'm on a show floor and someone comes at me and the use case is in our sweet spot, I will literally walk them over to one of these guys here. I think I've done it with Mega and with True back in the day. So, I think everyone here has the right intent, and it's really about getting business value or impact or changing the way you're working to get a real result. Gone are the days of the, just give me 2 years and I'll show you something. You have to show value pretty quickly.
Yeah, you're not going to go wrong if you pick anything on the stage here. You will go wrong if you pick ServiceNow. That's not an EA tool. Pardon me for saying.
You heard it here.
Yeah, it's amazing how far off. So when you look at what these folks are doing, and there's others, but it's night and day. So let me make up for my my gaffe, and Brenda, ask you to first take us through your success story with a customer who adopted and drove specifically strategy driving success in their EA practice.
Sure. I think part of your question was also, what are we doing in our tooling to support business architecture efforts? So we have a few things in our platform. Like any of us are going to give you kind of that same pet answer, value streams, capabilities, mapping, all that kind of stuff. There's a gentleman named Roger Burleton from the Process Renewal Group who we partner with, and we have the Burleton Hexagon actually in our tooling. He and Wendy Kuhn, actually, who I know everyone knows her, they're working on some content about business cohesion, which aligns well with our Danish management philosophy of cohesion, and that'll be available soon. And we're going to do a webinar with them, so be on the lookout for that. We also have something called Edgy in our software, which you can go on the website and learn more about that. But that connects, operations and IT and goal alignment and all that great stuff.
It's actually an industry framework, right?
Yes, it is.
The intersection group, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Thank you.
Good look up if you're interested in them.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff, really effective. And it gives you lots of different viewpoints of that. So it's very effective. And we've recently formed sort of an advisory group. So we're working on getting more connected to the business architecture community. More and more. It's interesting to see where you guys sit. Who here is a business architect and reports to a CIO? Okay.
Joseph.
Yeah.
You're doing my head.
But.
You're doing my head.
Okay.
Strategy officer. But it's not the CIO though, right? Exactly. So he's on it.
Yeah. So I've been talking to a lot of transformation centers or transformation offices, which is where I'm finding a lot of business architects are. And some of them are now reporting to the CFO. Is anyone here reporting to a CFO? One. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So we're taking all that, feedback in line and really trying to hone in on, what matters to the CFO and the CIO. And at the end of the day, it's dollars and cents, right? So, it's decreasing risk or increasing your revenues or tackling your tech debt, but something that's really accountable and traceable. I think in the past, all of us, because we've done this a while, have seen a lot of EA science projects. They don't last very long, right? So it really needs to be, your activity must be attached to some kind of tangible thing that the business understands.
Brenda, can you pivot that to the success story?
I need to think of.
Okay, well,
give me a minute. Give me a
we'll
minute.
come
There's
back
a few to choose from.
Jason, you're my other gaff. Please, Joe, you get to go next.
We get gaff points. That's great.
I missed your intro.
So that's okay. That's good. We know each other so well, right? So on the what we're doing front, of course, if you've been in some of the sessions in the track, there's a robust reference architecture, business and solution, right? It plugs into the tool. So, if you're stuck and you want to start with that business capability model, you've got these sort of tried and true best practice models that you can build on. They're not SAP specific. So again, I have no SAP in my background. I'm an agnostic enterprise architect, just in case you're wondering. I know we lean in where it's easier in the SAP space, but the tool is meant to be agnostic, et cetera. And the reference architecture is the same way. And I do think back to the integration with things like Signavio for business process mining and modeling is always great. And I do think the ease of use of the tool. So we license based off of applications. So, if you have 100,000 users in your organization, you can buy the tool. They can all get into it. And I think for that, for me, is a huge benefit because the past has been usually expensive enterprise architecture tools that 4 or 5 seasoned enterprise architects have access to and no one else does. And I think we all agree that defeats the purpose, right? You want collaboration. You want everyone to use this data. You want to plug it into the DNA of the processes in your organization. So your business person says, I own these capabilities and I own these metrics that we're seeing against them. So you can make real decisions with that insight, right?
Can I build on it for you quickly?
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, most of these EA tools are either priced by number of objects or they're priced by number of users. So what Jason's talking about is a pivot to be not user-based pricing because that locks out people from the insights of the tool, right?
Yeah, exactly. On the example front, so there's a Bright Talk webinar out there you can see by Venkat Opatasankar, who is at Intuit. And they had a really good use case where in their organization, they had a platform strategy, and they realized that across the 12 business units in the organization, they had like 33 independent road mapping processes, right? Mm-hmm. So these independent teams trying to decide what to do, and as a byproduct of the sort of redundancy and waste that comes into that process. So leveraging Lean IX, he's now got to one single instance of that road mapping process. The entire enterprise uses it, and it's continuous. They don't have to have this sort of, a quarterly cadence on it. They actually use it in a real-time way. And those are the kinds of stories that I love, right? Because that's the value that we want to create. And then, of course, the downstream effect of having that is wonderful. So that's my example. You can find that Bright Talk webinar on the web if you want and watch it. It's a great story.
Amazing. Who wants to go next? Gordon, you're looking like you're ready.
Well, I'm always ready to talk. So I'll start with, we have an integrated or native iPaaS. So that enables the success story that I'm going to tell you, because the success story is something anybody who's spent more than 5 minutes with me understands how excited I am about this whole topic of DTO. And the reason is because it takes what we do as architects and brings it to life.
What's DTO?
Digital twin of the organization. Sorry.
Digital twin of the organization.
Which there's an MQ coming out in Q1, which we're participating in because we're already in the market guide. But regardless, the success story for this was for a PIA for the Air Force. And what they wanted to do, they had a problem because they had, in major capability acquisition, they had a runway of about 16 years. Now, in the global scheme of things, some of our competitors, foreign competitors, were bringing major capabilities to fruition in 9 years. So they're going to try to cut that down to be competitive. So what we did was we used this concept of the value stream, which was major capability acquisition, and then broke it down into the value stages and then decomposed it into the actual processes, capabilities, people, technology, all the way down the stack. Brought the metrics, performance metrics for those individual components to show what the performance was for that value stream. So we were able to show how you could not only track a program going through this value stream, you could show the value it was amassing from stage to stage. Now, that's great because you can compare it against the past, which was the baseline. But more than that is to be able to tweak those metrics for those components in such a way that you can actually show the adjustment. So you've got a sandbox for simulation. Now, of course, that was the flow part for the value stream. But in order to get to that value stream, we needed to have some starting point. And that starting point happened to be as part of what most people would call capability-based planning.
Yep.
Right. So we took a Sidewinder, of course, you got to love the examples, right? We took a Sidewinder missile and we decomposed it into technological components, looked at the performance of that particular piece and all the components, and that helped us determine that that was a great candidate to put through this MCA and then track that program to completion. So it's measuring the value you create as an organization, but also how to improve that value creation over time.
Sure.
So,
Love that. Dan?
Sure. So probably my best example is the most simplistic one is a volunteer example I had done for my community school administration. So they put out a feeler for strategy assistance. So when I arrived, I missed the first meeting. And it was interesting because it's a bunch of parents and school administrators. There's no real architects in the room. And they'd already come to a conclusion after one meeting. The strategy was spend more money, hire more teachers. And I thought, okay, we need to work on this. So I explained a little bit some of the mechanics, not to teach them to be architects, but just what was missing, what they should work on. And did a workshop very quickly. Put together a rough draft capability model of some of the elements to not to get them to understand what capabilities are in any depth, but to just go down and say, do we need to do this? How well do we do it or not? Just a quick assessment. Map it to some of the things that were working well, some of the things that had gaps. Identify where value needed to be injected into the system and organize it, and came out with quite a positive result in a very short window. Now, we did it supporting the tools, but that's not really the overall important point. But showing how quickly you can take even non-architects, when you communicate in non-architect language, that architecture can value and clarify and drive. Everybody became aligned probably within the end of the hour. And so it went from no understanding of even what a strategy was to full alignment of, hey, we've got sore spots among this 20 capabilities, and we can start now actioning some of the tactics that we might employ to make them better. So I love that story. Again, it's quite a simple one. Another element that I thought, just throw one more to one of our clients, is that it's more of a business architecture with an IT than the pure business architecture group. So we do find both BA often embedded in IT, et cetera. And they continued pressure from the CFO every year, got to cut spending, got to cut spending, got to cut spending. And every year IT found a way to deliver. And they were really at their breaking point, saying, we don't know what we're going to do. So, well, why don't we start laying out the impacts to the capabilities relative to the proposed cuts so that you can go back to the CFO and instead of saying, okay, I've got to find it somewhere, put a capability map and say, okay, which of these capabilities do you want to hinder? Because we've got all the waste removed. And so actually have a business dialogue about the impact of the IT cuts and make the decisioning in a way that's transparent. From a feature functionality perspective, we support all of the normal tools and perspectives, as I think all four of us probably do here. What we're focusing on, I mentioned at the beginning, is just making sure that it's easy to, one, create, two, to collaborate, and then three, to consume, so that they can actually take the work product and get it out to the broad audiences, because we have seen that there is a challenge in that. And using that translation, don't try to make your audience architects, but rather find the right way to use their language to understand the value of your work product.
I love what you just said. Brenda, quick success story? I would love to ask another question if you want.
Sure. No, it's very similar to yours, Dan. Right? It was a lower level maturity kind of organization and sort of a new business architecture team, and we chose that same sort of strategy, right, about the capabilities, because it's language everyone understands across the organization. So, yeah.
Is there someone in the room who has had a challenge trying to leverage tooling to deploy business architecture in your organization? And might have a question or a challenge for the people at the front of the room here. I'm going to bring you a mic because this is going to be a good one. This is Steve Peterson at Aon.
Yeah, and most of my experience has been with Chris Armstrong with EA Pro, or not EA Pro, with Sparks EA, and so there's been a long history. AT&T, UHG, a lot of big companies where I brought them in, and we've done that. At Aon, we're actually looking at BizzDesign, and my question.
You're going to be attacked after this.
You're going to
I'm
get
getting
a
out of
lot
the way.
phone calls now.
Well, I'll talk to anybody about this. Your challenge, two things. One, I'm doing a lot with model creation right out of Claude, and that's where we're headed. And when I'm doing that as a test, we're actually uploading that into BizzDesign. We haven't aligned it with ServiceNow yet. That'll be a thing, and back out. My challenge is taking business architecture and really making it actionable. Taking it from business architecture, not just current state and evaluating XYZ, but actually taking it down to dev, where we have architectural maps. And this is what I've done in all the big companies where the leaders are actually seeing current state, transition 1, transition 2, transition 3. So I'm not just going through process models and inventory. I'm actually telling that story down to actual architectural maps, or use Archimate a lot of times. We've done a lot in UML, and being able to show different plateaus, if you will, different releases in UML and plateaus within Archimate. So I know we're adding more tools, more AI tools within the tool, but have you guys thought about how it relates to external AI, tools like Claude going in and out, and really that empowerment?
Not even fair.
It's not even fair. You're teeing it up for
He
me.
already knows what I'm doing with BizzDesign, so he's cheating.
No, it's not even related to that. I only found out you were looking at BizzDesign just before I arrived, actually. The sales rep you're talking to had sent me a message, but I did a presentation on exactly your question at the CAN in September. And so I've got models set up where I'm using MCP with Claude, and I'm building content models through the AI, asking questions about the AI. It's amazing because it actually allows you not only to create content or read content, which is sort of obvious, although very cool, but it's also was doing some logical analysis of the data in the models. So for example, my favorite example, because this one really surprised me, I had to just walk through an SOP. So just a process model, step by step. The demonstration data was about an airport or something like this. And it gets to a step about issuing a boarding pass. Now in the model, there's no technology connected. And so the AI came back and said, okay, step 1 is a step 2. So then, hey, issue boarding pass. And it said, wait a second, there's no technology here. Those ones should be required. Not only did it identify a gap logically in the model, but it went to the app portfolio and identified what it thought would be the correct application to fulfill that need in that step and reported it back to me so that I could decide. So we're doing a lot relative to MCP, external AIs, in particular from a security perspective. It allows you to use your LLMs, your AI against your architecture data, and you don't have to worry about, well, where is it going, who can see it, et cetera. So super value. It's a recorded presentation. So if you're part of the Chief Architect Network, you can see it. And happy to discuss it further and talk more.
So just because if I'm sitting in a new chair next to Dan right now, I'm like super mad. So raise your hand if you can't say a me too on the same thing. No hands are up. But I know Jason wanted to say something quickly, so go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think we have parity with that same requirement set. So our MCP server is live. Of course, Linux has got a robust API layer, so all those things are available in the MCP server. And there is a concept in the meta model for us of a transformation, right? So the idea is that you put your future state version of the architecture in as a transformation to do exactly what you're asking for, right? Whether it's option analysis or to say, here's where we're headed and here's the projects that impact that. And of course, we can plug into GitHub and all these other things. So if you want to go all the way down to the code layer and to SBOMs and fun stuff like that, they're all integrated. So,
Steve, we got to close.
Yep.
Sorry, but it's a good question.
You can talk.
He's asking about the language models and notation, and I've actually seen, I think each of you has selection ability, right? That's is a quick question.
And I think at the end of the day, right, like at least for me, if you've used Mermaid or Plant UML or C4 or Structurizer, right, like the world, your visualizations of your data are what matter. The picture doesn't matter anymore. So like, yes, we have a capability to take a picture and turn it into data, but you want to visualize your data. You want to get out of the world of the picture is the thing. I realize you need to communicate versions of that and views, et cetera. And I think we're all moving in that direction anyway. Like, you want to visualize your data, and if you're doing it that way, you can use whatever visualization construct you want, because the data is what matters. So
Linda was nice enough to give us till 20. So if you can give us just a few pieces of advice, right? What are the most important things for somebody deploying your tool to be effective in amplifying their business architecture practice? And I'm going to try to pick a different thing, because the thing you're going to notice as you talk to these folks is there's going to be the right fit for you, but a lot of the capabilities are common, right? And some are closer aligned to a particular macro enterprise platform. Some are closer aligned to, you'll find that. But so just kind of assume that as people kind of are sharing things that, yeah, go ahead, please.
what?
Advice for you as a business architect, for the audience as business architects, to be effective in driving strategy with your tool, like just a sentence or two.
Oh, in using the tool. I mean, for me, I think, and I'd be interested to see if everyone feels the same way. I think the solution to that problem is less a tool problem and more a value outcome conversation problem, right? Again, back to my sort of city map on the wall, right? I've known business architects that get caught up in like the capability model. And you're like, okay, but the capability model by itself doesn't give you anything, right? It's the insight that you get from that. It's doing capability-based planning. It's looking at how are we spending against those capabilities? What applications are supporting them, right? It's that insight. And I think translating and communicating that value is what gets your business architecture practice the oomph that it needs to expand and do more in the org.
There's never enough time. Hold on, let me grab your mic.
Giving us a minute here. But so here's the thing. But how can you help? I mean, how can, not any of you, not just you, but how can you help? Because so I get a call from someone that says, I don't know what to do to get people to adopt and understand the value, and I can't launch this business architecture thing, and what am I going to do? And I say, what have you done? And then he says, I ran a business capability model out of my XYZ system, and I brought it and showed them, and they threw me out of the building. And I'm like, okay, well, you're done.
Well,
but so how can you help? I agree it's the people, but how can you help?
I'll give you an analogy. And it's a tech debt related one, but it's quick. So an earlier role that I had where I inherited a piece of the portfolio, and a lot of times CIOs don't want to pay for tech debt. It's out there, but I'm not going to give you money for it. I'm going to give money to product for the next new shiny thing. And I had inherited a $250 million a year revenue product line that had an 8-year-old out of support version of some technology on it. But the org didn't know that. And when I connected those dots and said, you have tech debt, this tech debt is a potential $1 million a day revenue impact, then it's a very different conversation with senior leadership, right? And so that's what I would say pick a space. Don't just show the capability model, but take a business-oriented view, pick up a subset of the organization and say, did you know this is how we're spending money in the planning process this year based on capabilities? Why are we spending $100 million on this commodity capability and $10 million on what we've deemed the strategic capability? And that should drive, well, how does that happen, right? And then, well, we need a business architecture practice that's plugged in, that's being able to drive that as part of the strategic planning process.
And knows how to use your tools in that way.
Yeah, Geeta Payne at TIAA showed us a board level tech debt measure she reports up that I think each people at the front of the room would be able to support for us. And that's where it's not in some tool in some dusty closet. It's something that has relevance to the business that we can see if I do X, Y will be saved in my bottom line. And now all of a sudden, not just the tool, oh, this is helpful. The architecture practice is seen as that is what's uncovering that insight. Go ahead, Brenda.
Yeah, no, I was just going to, sorry, Gordon. I was just going to say, you said a word that I love, relevance. Whatever you choose to do and focus on, make sure it's really relevant and they can see the consequences of inactivity.
Love that, right. Gordon.
To answer the question succinctly is to tie everything you do to money. How does that company make money? If you can decompose how that company actually creates value as an organization, doesn't matter if it's, I mean, I've modeled COVID as an IT operating model, right? So I could take it on a micro scale and say, okay, the IT group, how do they service their customers? This is how they provide value. But take it on a macro scale and say, this is what my company does, this is how it makes money, and this is how I can help you improve, either increase the amount of money you made, I can decrease the cost through efficiency, or I can reduce the risk of something crazy happening along the way. You can tie it to that conversation. You don't have a problem selling the discipline, or at least the concepts.
Right.
Dan,
So my,
take us all home.
Yeah, and I'll answer in two quick parts because I think this part that Linda's alluding to is to get a little bit more precise on the tooling side for the audience unique to this panel. So first, for me, I echo what was said, and that assess the value work that you do from an external perspective, how the stakeholders see it. But from a product perspective, we have different styles to support anybody's view of business architecture for how the architects create the work product so that it's easy to do. You can look at the different offerings we have. And at the same time, we support the translatability of that work product, whichever style you choose, out into a consumable format for those different audiences. So when you come up with that value proposition, that money perspective, that is external assessed view, maybe using an AI, you can communicate that out in a way that those stakeholders will understand. So we've got both the ability for you to do your work efficiently, effectively, that's comfortable for your style, at the same time translate it out to the consumers of that for broad adoption.
Amazing. Well, it's an honor to stand up here with you folks, and on behalf of our entire industry, thank you for what you do to make our jobs easier, better, and effective, and in influencing our executives to drive with architecture thinking. So please join me in a round of applause for our wonderful panelists here, and we'll continue on to our keynote. Thank you so much. Great conversation.